XAUUSD, which is popularly known as the gold spot. Now, on the gold spot, we have a situation that has persisted here in the last 48 hours, where we have noticed that price action had continued to consolidate in this market, which further emphasized the strength of the sellers at this point in time. Now, fundamentally, we are in an indecisive phase right now, though the gold is currently trading waters above the week's key level. Remember, our key level was at the 1,985 at the beginning of the week. After being removed from the sell position we took advantage of yesterday. Now, with the way things are going right now, it appears that market participants are caught in a dilemma of strong United States gross domestic data and lingering Middle East concern as the focus shifts to today's US inflation data, which is coming up in about an hour or two or so. Now, as participants anticipate this event later today, for more impetus into what we are going to be doing, let's see how we are going to be positioning ourselves ahead of today's trading session. Now, let me quickly run through how the week started for us here and how we were able to capitalize on trading opportunities at the beginning of the week before we find ourselves at this point. Now, the beginning of the week on the XAUUSD was nothing interesting at all, as we were taken out of our buy position in a loss. Remember that we bought the breakout of this range at the beginning of the week. We bought right there above the $1,978.50 level, but unfortunately we were taken out on Thursday in a loss on that position. However, after that taking out of that position, we had a privilege of taking some selling positions too as well, which really not did very well, as price moved about 100 pips before we were taken out of that 1-2 at break even. And in fact, it was more of a consolidation phase at the beginning of the week, and while the market was consolidating within a range, we noticed a series of lower highs which emphasized that sellers were gradually gaining some momentum, so giving us that descending trend line to work with. However, in as much as we had lower highs in the market between Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday's trading session, we realized that price action was unable to find lower lows, and the inability of price action to find lower lows was a sign that buyers are still very present in this market. Now, if we look at what happened on Wednesday, remember that we had this demand zone identified around the 1,950 and the 1,955, and despite that strong bearish momentum that gripped this market here on Wednesday, we saw how it became difficult for sellers to break through that demand zone. As you will see right here on Tuesday, we had a candle that looked like an hammer candle, which technically informs us of the presence of buyers around that area. And at the point of noticing this, we decided that we are going to be joining an uptrend situation only if price action breaks out of this descending trend line, hereby negating that trend line as a barrier for buying pressure. Now, we saw what happened. Price broke out of that structure. In fact, we saw price move over. How many pips was that? Over 180 pips in our favor. We had multiple entries. Remember, we also added positions at the breakout of the 1,985 level. We also added position at the 1,978.50 and then the 1,990 before we moved our stop loss, taking us out with roughly above 100 pips in profit on that one. So we were able to recoup the loss we made at the beginning of the week on this one. However, since then, since the selling pressure resumed here, price has been consolidating to further emphasize an indecision here. Now, the last structure here that will be one of the yardstick that we will be using to guide our trading decision for this week is this ascending trend line. Now, remember that since the beginning of this month of October, price action has been very bullish, giving us consistent higher highs and higher lows. And when we connected a series of higher lows, we had this ascending trend line to work with. And you know how we use our ascending trend lines in this community. As long as price action remains above the ascending trend line, we shall continue to look out for patterns and structures that support the idea of buying that asset. However, something interesting is going on in this market, which we of course do want to take into consideration, and that is the fact that despite the strong bullish momentum since the beginning of this month, you will see how that area between the $1,997 area and the 1,990 area had become a barrier for buyers, as every time price gets into this zone, we saw our sellers emerge to negate all potentials by the buyers to break out of that structure, making this area a strong seller's territory to look out for. And in fact, since last week Friday, we saw what has been going on here, selling pressure. We saw what happened here on Tuesday. We saw selling pressure here. We saw what happened here on Thursday, yesterday, selling pressure. And since the early hours of today, we saw how it has become difficult for buyers to break out of that structure. Now, if this persists and continues, then the chances that the ascending trend line that has been supporting the bullish momentum since the beginning of this month could be broken to the downside. Now, if this ascending trend line gets broken, then this will be the first time price will be breaking down that structure, giving us a sign that we might be in for a momentum shift, probably profit-taking activities, which will reflect on the chart as a sell-off. Now, to position ourselves ahead of today's trading session, we have a range we are going to be using to guide our decision. So let's zoom in and make things a little bit much simpler for us to see. Now we have the range between the 1,990 and the $1,978.50 level, which we will be using to guide our decisions for today. Now, if price action continues to trade within this range, we know that we are still in an indecisive phase. We need to exercise patience, and the only signal we are going to be looking out for is either the breakout of the resistance line for an opportunity to buy, or the breakdown of the support line for an opportunity to sell. Now, within this range is our key level for this week, which is at the 1,985 level, which interestingly shares a beautiful confluence with the 1,985, making it a crucial juncture for us to look out for trading opportunities today. So what we are going to be doing here is to remain patient, and for us to sell, let's talk about the potentials of sellers first of all. What is it that we are going to see on this chart that will make us feel comfortable selling these assets? Now, the first thing, like I said earlier, is price should break down the ascending trend line, which has already happened right now with an engulfing bearish candle, giving us a beautiful signal for an opportunity to sell. Now, when the breakdown happens, I want to see confirmations to happen, and the confirmation will come in the form of price action coming back to retest the trend line, or the 1,985, where the continued selling pressure, that is, buyers are finding it difficult to climb back above the 1,985. Then we want to be joining the bearish momentum all the way to the downside. And if price continues to break down structures such as the $1,978.50 level, which has been a buying niche since Wednesday's trading session, a breakdown will be confirming more selling opportunities and then adding more position to our sell position. So this is how we are going to be selling the XAUUSD today, and if price continues to drop further, breaking down the 1,970, we will be adding more sell positions to our existing trade. So this is how we are going to be selling the XAUUSD for today. So anywhere below the 1,985 area seems promising for buy selling opportunities. Now, in as much as we are looking out for selling opportunities, let's quickly take into consideration the potentials the buyers have in this market. Do the buyers have a say at all in this market? Do they have any potential of pushing price to the upside? And if they do, what do we want to see that will convince us from negating the idea of selling these assets and jumping into a buy position. Now, for us to consider buying the XAUUSD today, I would want to see price take out the resistance line of that range at the 1990 area. Now, there are two ways to which we can capitalize on this. For those of us who are very profitable so far this week, that is, if you had been joining the buying opportunity we were taking, then you can afford to place a buy stop order above the 1990 area. So if you place a buy stop order, what you're doing is you're simply risking some of the profit you had made so far this week. And in fact, if it doesn't work out, you know that you're only risking some of the profit you had made and it's not really touching your real portfolio. However, if you are new with us today and this is your first time taking a position, I will encourage you to exercise patience and wait for the breakout of structure to happen first of all, like a breakout like this, then wait for price to come back and retest the structure, giving us buy pressure on our lower time frame so that we can join the uptrend move. Now, price climbing further to the upside, breaking out of the 1997 level, which happens to be the highest point price action has been in the last couple of months, will be welcoming more buy positions. So it's a simple setup we have here on the XAUUSD. All we just need to do is exercise patience, as our center of focus for today's trading session is basically between the 1990 area and the $1,978.50 level. So let's see how the market will play out here. And I told us here that as long as price remains below the 1985, a selling opportunity looks much more reasonable. So this is my view here on the XAUUSD. So I just encourage us to exercise patience and allow our structures to mature before you jump into your position. And if you do, you will be smiling to the bank. So on this note, I would like to ask if there are any questions. And if you have questions, feel free to drop them in the comment section. Or is there any particular area that you feel you need further clarifications? Let me know in the comment section, and I'm here and willing to be of help in that regard.